À-bas-le-ciel.
All right. I don't know if you want me to use a pseudonym for you or not use your real name at all. But,
I don't know.
okay, cool.
I'm not worried about
Good.
anything.
Well,
I don't have anything to hide.
you don't have anything to hide, but I have some experience with crazy vegans in the movement, tracking me down and threatening to kill me and this kind of thing. You know how it is. So, anyway,
Okay, yeah.
I hope you never have this
Different
experience.
experiences.
But anyway, whether this is your experience or not, you've just gotten back from attending a somewhat famous vegan activism and animal rights conference. This is hosted by the University of California, Berkeley, correct?
Honestly, I read. I don't know exactly if I know that a lot of people who are behind the organization belong to Direct Action Everywhere,
Right.
but I don't know under what name they actually organize the conference.
Okay.
But most of it takes place on the grounds of the university.
Okay, so that I didn't realize. I thought it was a University of California event that just happened to have a lot of people from Direct Action Everywhere because Direct Action Everywhere, they're really based in Berkeley. But, obviously it makes sense if, in fact, it's organized by Direct Action Everywhere and happens to be at University of California. Okay.
It may be anything could be possible at this point. I never asked any of the particulars about how the whole event was organized.
Okay, so in terms of what you could see, I know that Direct Action Everywhere were a big part of it. Wayne Xiong was there, and so on.
Wayne Xiong, actually.
Okay, I actually speak Chinese, so the HS sound is not SH. It's not correct Chinese. So
I know, but everybody over there pronounced it Xiong, so I'm assuming that Wayne Xiong goes by Xiong.
So this is a pattern. This is a pattern in vegan activism. Gary Francione prefers to pronounce his name Gary Francione, right? So Wayne Xiong prefers to pronounce his name Sheng, I guess, but it's not correct Chinese, and Francione is not correct Italian. So
I don't know if that's what he prefers, but maybe he's given up. Actually pronounce it the right way.
Yeah, maybe. I'm guessing Wayne doesn't speak Chinese. No shade. I mean, I don't speak Hebrew, and I don't want to speak Hebrew. I have Jewish ancestors, but I choose not to speak Hebrew. I understand those are decisions we all got to make. But yeah, growing up Canadian, definitely within Canada, within Toronto, you're always supposed to make an effort. If someone's Quebecois, you pronounce the name in a French way. So my name is Mazar, not Mazard, but I'm not fussy about it. But normally growing up in Canada, you have a little bit of sensitivity to those things. Anyway, this is a digression.
Is it actually Isol or is it?
Yeah. But as you can imagine, I'm open-minded. So, like, when I lived in Laos, I had a Lao name. At the office, I was Ison, which is it's a name that's kind of funny to explain because it sounds like a communist code name. It's like Big Brother S. It sounds like you're working inside. And working inside the government, I was working for the Communist Party because everything there is controlled by the Communist Party. So they like that. They like that nickname. And then I had another nickname, which was just the White Elephant. In the Lao language, of course. That was not figured one. But in that same way, each of the languages I've studied, I've normally taken a name into looking. But yeah, I go by Isol. That's what I live by. But yeah, it was funny when I first moved to the south of France. When I moved to Perpignan in the south of France, everyone knew the name Mazar. That was a normal name there. For the first time in my life, I moved somewhere. But yeah. So anyway, no big deal. But no, I just said this is part of the kind of cultural sensitivity training you get coming up in Toronto. Okay, so the main speaker, I guess, was then Wayne Xiong. No? Okay, so just tell me, in terms of the overall setup, what was going on? Yeah?
Okay, well, it was a full week, and it was
cool.
Really full of workshops and trainings, and there were a lot of speakers, actually. Glenn Greenwald was there.
Oh, wow. Huh.
And he was the keynote speaker for the conference, actually. A few other people whose names I don't quite remember. James Aspey was there, very present.
Yeah.
Earthling Head was there, very present. That vegan couple were there. I was
some
not aware
YouTube
that
talent.
They changed their shtick. Yeah.
Yeah. They've improved a lot over the last 2-3. They've improved a lot. The quality of their show has improved in the last 2-3 years, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, they were excellent. And Wayne did a couple of interventions. Most of the time was out of sight.
Yeah.
He gave a big speech on what day did he give? I think the same day as Lynn Greenwald, he gave a speech. He also gave a speech when we did a funeral on the Thursday for some animals,
Okay.
something that I think they do pretty often, where we made a big ceremonial march through the streets of Berkeley, and we buried some animals on the lawn in front of the how do you say the city hall.
Yeah.
And he gave a pretty rousing speech at that moment. But most of the time, he was out of sight, and everybody else in the organization had their time to shine. And I think he was dealing a lot with a lot of background organization for many of the activities that we were doing during including the big open rescue at on the very last day of the
So I did read about this, a somewhat ceremonial open rescue project. So let me just ask, given that 2018 has been a very dramatic and tumultuous year for direct action everywhere, would you say that there was any criticism of DXE or any events that were, critical of them, or maybe reflecting on successes and failures, what went well, what didn't go well? You know what I mean in this sense?
There was not a lot of reflecting on. I think they were the whole conference was very much the what was being kept in mind was that we're here for the animals. So during this conference, please meet up with people, make contacts, have fun, learn, but always keep in mind that we're here for the animals. I was aware. I honestly. At one point, I didn't know if I was going to go anymore. But since my plane ticket was already, reserved, and I already had a room reserved, I decided to attend anyway. But I looked at the criticisms of DXC, and I looked at the answers.
Yeah.
I have to say that most of the answers that have been given to me sound transparent and sound like they're conscious that they've made mistakes in the past. I mean, this is what these are things that they freely admit, that they've made mistakes in the past, that they've learned from it, and that they've changed some of the ways they're doing things. And from what I've seen at the conference, I would have to agree with that. I don't mean to say that I'm not uncritical of DXC anymore, but from what I've seen at the conference, they've been accused of racism and homophobia before. I did not see anything of that at the conference. Au contraire.
Yeah, look, I mean, I've heard those claims also, and I think I have about 20 videos criticizing DXE on my channel. I've never once, substantiated or dealt with those complaints. I mean, the only thing I say that's interesting with that, it shows some of the challenge of having a social media-based form of activism in the 21st century. And one of the people, what he said to me, his complaint was he felt that ethnic minorities were not getting their videos onto the main YouTube page, and they weren't getting posted on the Facebook page. But I mean, I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. Like, people do a demonstration, and then they complain, well, somebody else's demonstration is on the Facebook page and on the YouTube channel and not mine. So I just say, beneath the issue of racism per se, it seemed to me instead a lot of those complaints were about control of promotion and social media platforms, which is, something worth thinking about in a different sense, but isn't really racism as racism doesn't seem to me the problem with DXE. I've made many videos about the problems, but I don't think that's one of them. Yeah.
The way I see it, for the social media, I think that they really want to concentrate their effort. The Berkeley team wants to concentrate their social media effort on Berkeley.
Right. Yeah.
And every other place is encouraged to have, I think, their own media presence.
Right.
So deal with it as you see fit.
Right.
If you don't get, I can understand that if people feel like they don't get enough recognition from, Berkeley, which is probably seen as the central, the core of DXC. Maybe, but frankly, I don't think so. I mean, the way, again, what I've observed, I don't know if it's their actual tactics or anything like that, but I think they really, really, really want to concentrate on Berkeley. because I think they want to really have political impact locally, in Berkeley, in San Francisco area, maybe in all of California if they can.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're really concentrating their efforts on actual political change.
Yes, yeah. They've been open about that. In terms of their most recent manifesto document, that they're trying to build a vegan community in Berkeley, California specifically. Anyway, look, this is the purpose of this video is not really to criticize Direct Action Network, just because I already have so many others. So I just say, for people who don't know watching this, I'll have a link below the channel. I have a whole playlist of videos. But I do think for people who signed up, people who joined DXE just a couple of years ago, it is a big change, because it used to be in the past that they were supposed to be a decentralized, non-hierarchical global network, and they've become the exact opposite. They're a hierarchy led by one man. They have a center, which is this one place in Berkeley. And, so if you support DXE, that's now what it's all about. That's the exact opposite of what people were joining for just 2 years ago, say. So a short time ago, they've changed in that respect, too.
Yeah. I'd say that, Wayne probably has a large presence in the organization. I think that's undeniable. But I think that there's a lot of place for input from the other members of the core team.
Yeah. Sure.
More than what people, I think, because what I've seen, I'm not here to just praise DXC because, as I said, I'm not uncritical of the organization, but I was actually impressed by what I saw over there. So, but some of the criticisms about the DXC being cult-like or things like that, I really didn't see much of that. And I think, of course, Wayne is important in the organization, but I don't think that the whole thing just turns around him. I mean, the guy could go to prison.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens when he does.
We'll see what happens. I mean, if you accumulate everything that's on his head he's well over 60 years.
The other thing,
the time that could be coming in or not.
Maybe he'll be pardoned by Donald Trump.
Maybe.
Donald Trump likes to pardon celebrity cases. So look, the other question to ask, when they were founded, DXC put a lot of emphasis on a sort of new and academic approach. They claimed that their methods were based on social science research, and at the beginning they made an effort to do that. So this conference, to what extent would you say it was academic in that sense? It was talking about social science research or research into what's effective and what's not? That's why when I ask about them being self-critical, what's working, what's not, and I don't know, to what extent was it men of action? I don't know, what's the alternative? Non-academic. Well, I mean,
As a baby activist myself, I did not attend most of the really advanced, workshops. Really? There was a lot, I mean, for every time slot, there were maybe 3 or 4 workshops that could be offered. So I did not attend the most advanced ones. I don't know that there was a lot of theorizing going on. Yeah, there was a lot of it in private conversation between attendees. Right. There was a lot of that, a lot of really great conversation to have with people who attended. I mean, it's really great to be at a vegan event where anti-species event. I mean, where everybody's talking about something else other than food. Yeah. Right. Yes. I know. And but I would say that the really core focus is on most methods of nonviolent protest. Like I attended a workshop on Kingian nonviolence. Yeah. And there were other such workshops. Mostly, so people don't know, he's talking about the method of nonviolence practiced by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So just Dr. Martin Luther, exactly. I think that's really what where they want to orient and stuff. I mean, I think they want to really bring out the anti-species to the forefront ideals, and I think that they chose a purely compassionate, nonviolent method of protest to do that, and that's what that's what I took out. from
Right.
the whole conference.
Yeah.
If I had one great,
Okay.
one big,
So given that a lot of it's about methods, do you think a new method came out of this? Like, just to give an example, within the last 1 year, there's been a lot of excitement about the Cube of Truth protests, So, I mean, were those the kind of discussions as to what extent is Cube of Truth effective, or to what extent should you try, the old-fashioned DXE disruptions? I mean, they used to run onto baseball pitches. They used to interrupt baseball games. That used to be their method, this kind of thing, running into restaurants, yeah.
They really wanted everybody to have a taste of every kind of approach that's being mainstreamed right now. So disruptions, cubes of truth, good old-fashioned marching, and open rescue. And I think that the real goal is to have all of these things work together.
Right.
Because these forms of protest all have different goals.
Right.
Disruptions are not meant to turn people vegan. They're meant to make people aware that there's a problem in society and there's this question. It's there to raise consciousness of the issue. Cubes of truth are more like are where you're trying to do some one-on-one convincing of people. The other methods are not don't have anything new to. Sorry, lost my train of thought.
No problem. I mean, for me, one of the things that's interesting, I don't know if you've heard Wayne say this. I've seen it in writing. I've also seen him on YouTube or in recorded lectures saying this. He said that his journey towards direct action everywhere started when he lost patience with baking cookies and baking muffins and giving them out.
Yeah.
And, actually, my journey to vegan activism is going the exact opposite way. I've just enrolled in baking college. I'm learning how to bake. I actually think baking bread, baking pies, whatever, I think actually, cuisine-centered activism in terms of outreach and getting people interested, I'm more convinced than ever that is a good way to reach people and start the conversation.
I agree.
Make them aware that you don't have to kill animals. Now, the contrast is, in terms of the direction Wayne went in, so rejecting cookie-based activism or, baking.
I don't think he's rejecting it, but I think he's rejecting it for himself.
Okay,
the best way that he can go forward, yeah.
Okay, I think I've heard what he says. I'd say he rejects. he does reject cookies and what have you. Yeah. But anyway, and that's why he got on this train with disruption being his method. But his focus increasingly is so-called open rescue. Now, I did read the article you sent me. So the article about this protest they had at the end of the conference, sort of celebratory protest, and there's the possibility again of people going to jail and being arrested for it. Now, I just note, so one interesting thing with this particular protest, in the state of California, there is a law, but I would call it more of a legal guideline, that if there is an animal that is starving or lacking water, people outside have the right to break in order to provide that animal with water or food. But it actually says in the law, with the animal remaining in confinement.
Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't give you the right to actually steal the animal or take the animal outside. It gives you the right to go inside and provide it with food and water and then leave. Yeah. Yes. So I just note they even though they raised this law, actually what they're doing is illegal. They're stealing the animals and not giving them back.
Exactly. Yeah. They're not they're not stealing the animals. They're liberating them. That's frankly, I think it's fair enough. As a vegan, I think it's the way to see it. Okay, have you seen the video about the blind dog that was rescued recently?
No, not a blind dog.
Okay. Recently, they did an open rescue where they rescued 3 dogs from a place where they do experiments on dogs.
Okay.
And one of these dogs is Julie, and she's blind. And there's this video that they made. During the conference, they had a VR they had a VR experience of the rescue. So they filmed the entire rescue operation in VR. And when you're visualizing the rescue, you've got Wayne there explaining to you what's going on. But you can see everywhere they went inside, you can see. Personally, I can tell you that if I had been there, I would not have come out empty-handed.
Yeah.
That's how powerful it is.
Just the conditions in the lab were so terrible. You mean, yeah.
The conditions in the lab were terrible.
Right.
And nobody deserves to endure this. I mean, I realize that those animals that they rescue are, about half symbolic value, but the other half is you're actually helping, someone escape or horrible conditions and get the care they deserve. So that's why I know, according to the law, they steal those animals. That's undeniable, according to the law. But the whole problem with what they say in activism is that unjust laws don't deserve to be followed.
Hey, look, I'm a nihilist, so I mean, I don't. These are distinctions I really don't trade in. I mean, for me, it's about doing the best you can, and in a democratic.
Exactly.
But for me, in a democratic society like Canada, the United States, I can do better than this. I think I have better options than breaking the law and so on. I think I talked to one activist in China where you don't have the right to protest and there's no democratic process, there's no way to approach government. And the options for vegan activism in China are much, much more narrow and constrained. They're largely limited to working inside restaurants, and you saw the way to respond to that. But I just being honest with you, I really don't sympathize with the law-breaking element of this approach. And, I mean, a guy like Roger Yates, sorry, I hope I'm getting his name right, but there was a guy who went to prison for some time because his activist group, they got into destroying fur, fur in fur shops. And I think a lot of vegans can sympathize with that. But I mean, if you're gonna steal fur or steal leather or go into shops and destroy fur, what he actually ended up,
I do see a difference between stealing and destroying inanimate objects and freeing somebody. Yeah. I do see a difference. I see that the approach of doing it open-faced and in a really non-violent mindset, I think takes a lot. I mean, personally, I might not do it ever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can criticize people who do it because I felt.
Right. I understand. You felt an emotional pull to it. Right.
I felt the emotional pull. So, and when we did that protest at the industrial farm, I mean, I'm just so grateful that we could pull something like that because it was huge and it was symbolic.
Right.
And I think it's the sort of action that could change the course of things.
Right.
I think. And while I don't approve of every method of activism, but I think that many methods can work together. I mean, you need restaurants.
Yep.
You need bakeries. But I think at the end of the day, you will need civil disobedience. I think that's going to be a requirement to make things go forward.
Well, when you break into a lab and interrupt research that's underway, theoretically it could be research into curing cancer, but theoretically it could be research into making a shade of lipstick slightly more red. It could be something like this. But in either case, the company doing the research, they're in a position to say, oh, this was a $6 million research project, and you interrupted it, invalidating the results. So now you and your organization are liable for $6 million worth of damage. So apart from the criminal act, there are just simple damages, legally speaking, where you're liable for the cost of the damages. So I mean, even if what you're saying were true, which I don't agree with, but I already have other videos saying that, I think in terms of the cost benefit analysis. But I just say, like, let's say we've got a budget of $6 million, which some organizations have. PETA, People for Ethical Treatment, they have $6 million. What are we going to do with $6 million in 10 years of our lives? I think we can do better. That's my general feeling on this. But look, with this having been said, DXE doubtless has been a lightning rod that's brought together talented people. And I hope we get to see some new talent and new inspiration coming out of it. I've talked to a lot of disillusioned people who, got their hearts broken with DXE and are now bitter ex-members of the group. I've talked to a lot of people who felt that way about the abolitionist movement with Gary Francione. And, of course, I've talked to people who felt that way about lifestyle activism, Freely and Durian Rider. So it is interesting. We've been through a period of time when veganism has been rapidly kind of shedding its skin, in the sense of a snake shedding its skin and taking on new directions. But look, I mean, fundamentally, I'm glad to hear that a bunch of people got together and we're talking about how to make that change happen in Berkeley.
And I don't see. On that point, I don't see anything negative because I've met people that I'm going to be able probably stay in contact with for years to come.
Great.
And whatever direction activism takes, there's always a way to either influence how it's going or to be able to, learn from you people all the time. To go back a little bit on what you were saying about the possibility of maybe being sued for millions of dollars. One other thing that maybe people don't see is that usually DXC are very, very, very well prepared before they do something. They know everything they have to know about the place. They get legal advice, and in the case of the open rescue we did in Petaluma, they petitioned the city hall beforehand. They petitioned the animal control groups beforehand. They did months of background work before actually doing what we did.
Yeah.
So they're not doing this, they're not being capricious about it, you might say.
Right.
Or they're not doing it out of the blue. So this is the kind of forethought that makes me more hopeful that these methods can work.
Okay, but look, with that having been said, I just point out by contrast, they did recently have a naked woman lying in a pile of poo. I think she was wearing a bikini. I think they run into restaurants and shout, run into a butcher shop and say, "Why do you kill the pig? Kill me instead." They have had a lot of emotionally overwrought and seemingly very poorly planned activism. So, what you're saying about this event may be true, but they're associated with a lot of really low-grade, poorly planned stuff, from my perspective. Good.
The woman in the pig shit thing.
Yeah,
she's the woman in question is the one who came up with the
idea. I know. I'm not saying it was against her will.
I mean, they try stuff, but even that stunt took a lot of preparation beforehand.
Got to get a truck full of poo, no question. Okay, great. So let's wrap. We're coming up in half an hour. I'm happy to talk to you, but I'm gonna stop recording now for the video. So this will be our video reflections on the latest big conference coming out of Berkeley, California.
The haters gon' hate my drool, where them bottles at? So we can pop corks at their head and pour some on the floor, cause these niggas dead.
À-bas-le-ciel.